Hello everyone, it's Leigh here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to make a mixed media page with a bit of a difference to what I would normally do. So this one's going to end up being super grungy. What I'm making it on is a 9 by 12 piece of watercolor paper. It is 200 GSM, and to start with I'm going to do a little bit of collaging on it. Then I'm going to attack it with some watercolors and some chalk paints. I'm going to add some textural items to it. Might be a bit of scribbling in there. And then I will, once it's dry, I'm going to dip it in a botanical dye. So I'll be making some botanical printed paper for my upcoming journal. So I have kept some of the dye from that, so I'm going to dump this one into the dye. I've never done it before, so I'm not sure how it's going to work out. But anyway, so first of all I'm putting down a bit of collage. I'm not going to be covering this page completely in collage because it's watercolor paper. I don't need to thicken the paper up a bit, so I'll just add in a few bits and pieces. I'm using matte medium as my glue to attach everything to the page. Because this is going to be a page in a journal, which means it's going to be folded in half, I don't want to build up too much right in the middle of the page. So I'm working to the left and to the right of the center just to keep that area easier to fold. I'm mostly using scraps and leftover bits from previous projects. This rabbit is actually a transparency that I made by printing the image off and then pouring or coating it in a self-leveling gel. Leave it to dry, and then the next day I sprayed water onto the back of the paper and then gently rubbed the paper away to leave the transparent image of the rabbit. This is my Stabilo oil pencil. I'm just going through and putting a few random marks on the page. Wet medium on top of the Stabilo will make it smudge like it does just here, which is part of the reason why I wanted it on there, because I want this page to be really grungy. I've got a tea bag that was left over from the previous challenge, so I'm going to add that in various places. And now I'm going to get some watercolors and add some really watery watercolors, so very diluted. I want the paints to be, I don't want them to be really opaque at all, so I want everything to have a translucent look about it. So I'm using various colours. I'm not particularly keen on this red, so I've added some of that, I think it was burnt sienna over the top. I love this aqua colour. So I'll just keep adding watercolours onto here. When I get puddles, I'm going to lift the page and let the paint run down the page. So just randomly applying it. Just doing it until it pleases me, basically, till I like what I see. I love this method. I just twist the paintbrush in my hand. And it does funny little marks to create that squiggly stuff. So this is the first time I've lifted the page up to make some of that paint run. This is chalk paint. The colour is sage, so it's this nice greeny colour. So I'm going to add that in various places. and then use my finger to smear it around so it all blends nicely together. The little girl sitting on the bird on the left hand side, that got sucked up the vacuum cleaner the other day, and I rescued her out of there, so I thought I'll use her because she's been on my desk and on my desk and on my desk, like lots of other things, but yes, I felt sorry for her. I got her out of the vacuum cleaner, and yeah, now she's in a piece of art. I love smearing paint around with my fingers. I love taking the chalk paint through the wet watercolour and seeing the effect that it has. So this whole thing really is a bit of an experiment. I'm trying some new techniques, and it's all to do with that course that I bought from Kate Thompson for the Abundant book. So the transparent rabbit, that was one of her techniques, and this in a way is too, but it's not like I haven't already done this sort of thing before, but just the way she did it on watercolour and uses it as a page, that was sort of, hadn't done that before. I couldn't find the right yellow to put in here. I didn't like this yellow because I think it's just too yellow. So I add some of that turquoise into it. So it's a lot of push and pull. So adding stuff and then taking it away or rubbing it in. This is just typical for mixed media, or the way I do it anyway. I'm always putting something on the page and then letting it run into other things or smushing it with my fingers. So what I have here is 3 blocks of watercolour paint out of that palette, and I've just put them in a dish, and I've been using them out of that dish, but I've also poured some white chalk paint into that, and I'm just letting the chalk paint and the watercolours mix together in that little dish and then applying it. I'm not concerned about ruining the paint set because it's just a really cheap one. And this is exactly why I bought it, so I could do this sort of thing with it. So I got the Stabilo again, and I'm just going in and trying to make this little rabbit stand out a bit more than he is. So with the Stabilo, I love to use a paintbrush after it and let it bloom on the paper. So I'm really happy with the way this is starting to look. I want it to be grungy, but what's the word? Ethereal. And when I put too much of something on, like I did with the Stabilo then, I can go in and wipe it off and put something else on there. Pretty sure that's white gesso that I'm using now, just to knock back some of the colour. It's starting to get just a little bit too bright, and I want it to be misty. I've got my little Fineliner here. Just thought I'd put a few more marks on there, but you know, I didn't wait for it to dry, so that's just typical of me. I have very little patience. I don't know how any of my stuff works out because I never wait for things to dry properly, or I force them dry. But I gave up using that because obviously it wasn't working properly because the paper was too wet. Then I've got my HB pencil, and I'm just scribbling in some little marks here. I'm trying to sort of make it look like that little girl might have wings. And just going around the edge of a couple of images that are on there. I really like that girl, the first one that I put in, the blue one. That was a collage soup image. And so was the rabbit too. Yeah, I'd printed them off ages ago and never used them. So I added some of that blue to the little girl and the bird, and then decided I wasn't that keen on it. It was a bit too blue. So I have this reddy orange sort of colour, and I mix that in with it, and that sort of changes that blue. Now I've just got a dish sponge, and I've dunked it into that paint with the chalk paint and the watercolour mixed together, and I'm just applying pretty much over most of this just to knock back the colours a bit. Don't want them to be that vibrant. So I've got another transferred image that I put onto cloth that I was trying out, and then this one is another one of those transparent ones, but I didn't end up using them. So I'm back in my stash of scraps looking for things to put on there, and I've been making something that Kate Thompson calls plaster lace, where you get a piece of lace or a lace curtain or something like that, and then you get use joint compound, so it's used for joining sheets, you know, the internal sheets, wall sheets. Scrape that over the lace and then let it dry, and then when it's dry just crack it, like break it up, and a lot of the plaster will fall off, but a lot of it will stay on the lace, and you get this really grungy looking plaster lace. So I really like that. Just auditioning bits and pieces of fabrics. I want to see if I can get some fabrics in there. So I've decided this one's going on, so I'll stick that one there. This is a piece of cotton fabric that I had tried to glue a metal butterfly to, but it didn't stick, but it did leave behind the impression of the butterfly. It was brass or something like that, so I thought, well, waste not, want not, it can go in this thing. So by this stage my fingers are getting really sticky. Everything I touch I pull up off the page. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it? So I'm really pressing that gel medium down into that lace to make sure that it sticks to the page. And the strings, I've left them on there, so I'm just making sure they're attached as well with a bit of gel medium. Cleaning it up a little bit. And then I have this other lace that you'll see in a moment. I'm trying to tear a piece of it off. It was dyed in a botanical dye bath, so the same dye that I'm going to eventually put this whole piece of work into. So it wasn't a very strong dye, so I just left it in there for a few minutes. With the page itself, I dipped it and then took it out straight away. I didn't want it to get too dark. Okay, so I've got these Tim Holtz Distress crayons. Not a big fan of them, to be perfectly honest. And I try to use them because I did buy them and I thought they'd be great because I've seen other people using them and I just don't know whether I'm not using them properly or anyway, or whether it's just the colours that I chose, but I get a bit of that in. And this is a gouache pen or crayon. So I thought I'd add a little bit of this in because what that will do, because it's waxy, when I do put the work into the dye bath, it's going to resist in those areas. That's what I think will happen anyway. So I've got my pen out again and I'm just doing a little bit of outlining And a few random marks with the pen. I like to do lines with dots on them. Usually I do circles with dots, but I did straight lines this time. A little bit of outlining of some of the characters that are in there that don't stand out anymore. I'd like to just bring them out a little bit without doing too much. So it's ready to go into the dye bath now, and I'll just pop up on the screen a before and after. So the difference is subtle, but if you look at all the parts of the image, you can see where the differences are. In hindsight, I could have left it in the dye a bit longer. It got all these little spots from bits of rust that were in the actual dye mix, so I really like the spotty look. So where it really got dark was around the edges of the paper, and also the lace and the fabric got a bit darker. I'm absolutely loving the way this has turned out, and I just love everything about it. So this is the first time I've done this, and I'm going to try it again, and next time I'll be a bit braver. I'll leave my page in the dye bath a bit longer, or maybe dunk it, pull it out and then dunk it again. I don't want it to get too dark, but I think this could have done with just a little bit longer in there. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of it. Do you like this? I love it. I'm going to be doing some more, make some other elements to go into my journal. So if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment or a heart or a smiley face or something like that in the comment section. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed to my channel. And we'll see you for the next video. In the meantime, have fun in your crafting room. Happy creating. And hugs and cheers from Australia. Hooroo!